Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Latina Mic Drop. I'm your girl, Miriam Simon, executive coach. And guess what? I'm venturing into becoming a book coach. If you're interested in writing your own book, a memoir, a business book, professional development, anything in that realm, I'm your girl. I'm here to help you. You have a message that you want to tell the world, I'm here for it. Let's open up with competition and comparison. So let me tell you a little bit about what happened to me when I was a teenager. So I was a teenager. This was the first time that I realized that another woman wanted something that I had, and I had never really experienced that before. So what happened to me was I had a friend who I thought was like my best friend, and out of fucking nowhere, she ends up like being super interested in the boy that I was talking to. Now, that boy liked me. I really wasn't all that into him, but I fell to the peer pressure and kind of like began being his girlfriend, so to speak. And there was nothing happening, like not even a kiss or nothing like that. And then it was like real innocent days. So then what happened to me was that she was just so interested in him and so interested. I don't even think she was like that interested in him. I think she was just so interested in taking him away from me. So out of nowhere, she was just like, oh, he's not good for you. He's not good for you. This and that and all this other stuff, to the point that I listened to her and I let him go. Don't you know that within a day or two, she was the one that was with him? And then now she was the one walking up and down with this guy. And I really was taken back by that experience because I thought she was my friend. I thought that she was there for me. I thought that she was going to be cool with me. Like, I didn't expect that at all. I had no idea that somebody would want what I had. And that was a really tough realization for me to realize that sometimes people become your friends to hurt you, or become your friends and become jealous of what you have and become jealous of what you gain. And that's why today's conversation is important, because although you see what people have and you think that's what you want, it's not always peaches and cream. For me, that wasn't a big loss because, like I told you, I wasn't even that into the guy. Number two, I really had no feelings for boys. I was just kind of going with the emotions at the time. And I was exploring. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what it was like to really have a boyfriend or anything like that, like to have a partner. And there was nothing there. So for her to come into my life, see what I had, and then want what I have, then like manipulate me into convincing me, influencing me to leave him, that was like, what the? I laugh about it now, but I was hurt back then. And so that kind of affected the way I had relationships with other women and why I didn't really have a lot of friends throughout high school, throughout my working, from forever. And right now I have Casa de Chingonas, and I am really proud of the Casa de Chingonas because I was not thinking that I would have such a powerful group of women. And I mean, come on, how would I not know that, right? But it's just that you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And so what happened is that I put this group together. I personally invited every single woman that's part of it. And everybody showed up, and I was shocked. I was shocked. And the power that we have in that 1 hour is immense. And we are really there to support each other. Every conversation is deep. This is not a conversation where we are, superficial or holding space for nonsense. Like, we are really holding sacred space for each other and really talking about deep things and talking about things that matter to us. And so for me, that was one of the hardest things to start. It was one of the hardest things to put myself out there to say that this is what I wanted to do. And especially the name, like to call it that. And it's interesting to think how some people think negatively about that word while other people think positively. But it took me, what, 30 years to be able to close that gap between what happened to me as a young teenager to where I'm at today at 45. And I want to talk about competition and comparison because I think people think that you need to be in competition with another woman or with anybody really to be successful, or that there's not enough for everybody. And so I come from the space of like, there's some for you, there's some for me, there's some for all of us. You have your lane, I have my lane, and we can go together. I think about friendly competition because trust me, I like to win. Like, I'm a high achiever. I like to win. I watch The Challenge, the show that used to come on MTV. I watch Traders. I watch shows like that, like where you have to be strategic and you have to think about who's who and what's what. That is corporate space 24/7. Like, we live like that. That is what we do. So you're always thinking about, who do I trust? What do I do? How do I do this? There's always a little bit of competition, but as long as it's friendly competition. And what does competition and comparison expose? Benefits of that are that you get to see the unwritten rules, right? So you get to see who gets rewarded, who gets visibility, what's the language that people speak that gets rewarded, what are the relationships that matter, what are the credentials I need, right? So one of the main things that I did when I got into this job 13 years ago, which by the way, I celebrate my 13-year anniversary tomorrow, Thursday. Super happy and excited about that. And what I did is I pulled 1,000,001 job bulletins for all the manager jobs that were available. And what did I do? Keep track. And I said to myself, okay, I need to compare because my experience and that experience doesn't match at the moment. If I want to get to this point, these are the things that I need to get, right? So at that point, you're comparing. You're taking a look at what your experience is to what it needs to be in order for you to get to that point. And so, like that, you decide what is it that you want to adopt, what is it that you want to reject, right? I knew that I wanted to have a managerial job. So I wasn't going to go and become an electrician, or I wasn't going to go and do something else, right, in transportation, because that's the industry that I'm in. And then you can take it on and translate it to your own style. So then you can say, this is what works for me, this is what's working, right? And then you can also sharpen your strategy and your standards. So, healthy competition can push you to tighten your offer, elevate your executive presence, or build proof receipts faster without needing permission. So, here's the thing, I'm at a point where I can actually build some standards. So, before that, I had to see what they were and see what they needed in order to become better. What was the strategy that was currently being used? What were the standards that were currently being used? And then how do I meet the moment and make them better? What are the problems that I'm seeing that I need to incorporate change? And how do I do that? How do I implement that? Right? So those are all the things that you can figure out by comparing. And the other thing too is that when you see somebody else in the room like you're like, oh, I'm not the only one. Thank goodness. Thank goodness I'm not the only one. Because that is what a lot of people struggle with, being the only one, because you're misunderstood. Like, when people are celebrating Halloween, I'm celebrating Dia de los Muertos, right? I'm putting my ofrenda up while they're getting dressed up and going trick-or-treating. So who am I going to tell that to? Who am I going to share stories with if that's what I'm doing, but that's what they're doing? So culturally, it's different. Not that it's bad, just that it's different. So when you see people like you, then you're like, oh, yes, hey, girl, but sometimes what happens is instead of saying, hey, girl, they start to see you as competition, or they start to see you as a threat, Or they start to think, well, there's only room for one of us. Hell no. I'm here to tell you, no, ladies. If I ever have an opportunity to bring you up and elevate you, trust and believe that I will do that. Trust and believe that I will. But here are 3 things that competition and comparison will hurt you in. So the first one is it could trigger a simulation and it can minimize your voice. Why? Because if you are competing and comparing in a space that doesn't look like you and you're trying to be something that you're not, you're actually trying to fit their norms and not creating your own space. So what happens is you end up code switching, which I didn't even know that was a thing. Had no idea that was what I was doing because I wasn't telling anybody I was LGBT. I wasn't telling anybody I had adult kids. I wasn't telling anybody I was Mexican. Much of nothing. And then you begin to over polish. So you think, oh, let me use these big words. Oh, let me stand here. Or let me use the business jargon. Let me, to try to be somebody kind of like to kind of impress people, right? But instead of just being yourself, like if you know those words and you could use them, hell, shit, go ahead. If that's not your MO and that's not how you roll, then don't do it. Because people are going to tell you're being inauthentic. Like people are going to notice you're not being yourself. And you may be playing small to feel safe, right? So I felt like that for a little bit. I felt like my personality was too big. I felt like I was too much. I felt like I needed to stop performing to make other people comfortable. And that was really hard on me because I am not the one to just sit the hell down and do nothing. I like impact and I love helping people. So if I'm not helping people and I'm not creating that environment for myself wherever I'm at, then I'm out. When you have other people that are not at your level or not at your energy, then you need to get into a new room. That's what I did. I realized the room changed. So 1, they took me out. 2, I said, all right, I just don't belong there. Here's where I'm going to go. Here's what I'm going to do. This is where I'm going to build it. This is how I'm going to create it. Right? So I wasn't about to become one of them. And anyways, they didn't want me to. So sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. Because of that, I was able to build way more and do way more. That's how Become an Author became real. That's how this podcast became real. That's how my blog became real. That's how me getting to know so many different people outside of my job became real. Like it wasn't just me dedicating my entire life to the 9 to 5. I'm able now to extend myself beyond the role. It gives me so much fulfillment that I just can't stop. Like I love my job too. Don't get me wrong. I love what I do. And then the other thing too that can happen that's a negative thing is that you can misread structural barriers as personal failure. Right? So that's another thing that happened to me. So one time I had an incident with a young lady, and it wasn't even an incident, it was like a conversation. But then because nobody else was with us, and all I did was tell her no, she went back and acted like I was being aggressive. No, you just didn't hear what you wanted to hear. And no, you didn't want to follow instructions. And no, you think that I should just bend over backwards and do whatever the hell you want. When unfortunately, I had to give you the news that no, it wasn't at the moment. I'm giving you a solution of when and how, but the way that it was presented was inaccurate and incorrect. So what happens there is that, and what this was disparity treatment. And what happened after was that they had a closed door conversation without me with that person and took that person's side over having a conversation with me to ask me what had happened. What was my side of the story? And that other lady, her manager was actually telling her to not speak to me and actually told her to decline my meeting with her when I wanted to discuss it afterwards because I wanted to clear the air. Had nothing else to do with anything, had never had an issue with this young lady, had never had any altercation. To me, it was not an altercation. It was just a conversation, and she didn't like what I said because she wanted to get what she wanted. It was like speaking to a brat. And I'm an adult. We're here to do business. We're here to work. Then what happens is sometimes that we think, was it me? Did I screw up? Was I the effed up person? Was I mean? Was I rude? No, girl, you was not mean. You was not rude. Sometimes some people just don't like it when it comes from you, or they want to hear what they want to hear, and it upsets them. So we do face double standards. So people want to tone police me, and that shit's been happening to me forever. And they want to overlook you for stretch assignments or for visibility projects, things like that. And I was in a totally different kind of role right before that. So it was totally different. And then, you tend to think it's my fault, or you begin to burn out because you're trying to satisfy somebody who's never going to be satisfied, right? So that comparison and competition, like sometimes we're in circles that they're just never going to get us. They're just never going to get it. And it has nothing to do with you and your performance. As long as you know you're doing well, as long as you know that you have built the leverage, you have built the reputation, you have the network, you have the receipts. Don't be thinking that you got it like that, because sometimes we're misinterpreting also. Sometimes we're not realizing that we're not as good as we think we are. And then the third one is it can create lateral pressure instead of collective power, right? So that scarcity messaging that I was talking about, there's only room for one person, that definitely pits women against each other. It weakens the networks and reduces sponsorship when community is often the leverage, right? So working together, I mean, come on, like working together, my grandma would always say, yo tengo poquito y tu abuelo tiene poquito, pero juntos es mucho. So what that translates to is in English is I have a little bit, my grandma would say, and she would say, your grandpa has a little bit, because they did. They both were factory workers here in the United States with like a third grade education. And together we have a lot. And so with that, I learned, and it makes me emotional just thinking about it, that whatever I bring to the table and whatever you bring to the table, it can make it a great thing. And so I live my life like that, not only for me, but for the women that I work with, for the women that I bring into my circle, for the proximity that I have with powerful women. We can make it, and we can do so much good if we use competition and comparison for good instead of for taking away from other women and from other people. That is not cool. And also, right, sometimes people copy you and people do things like that, or you say something and sometimes it sparks their creativity, which is great. But I don't just pick up and copy shit. That shit pisses me off. But it's all good. There's enough for you, and there's enough for me, and there's enough for all of us. And if we work together, that integration builds momentum. And momentum is how we get change happening. And that's how we build together. Because I complement your skills and you complement mine. And we can make it work. And that's where we have to get to. We have to get to a place where we're doing this over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until people are recognizing who the F we are and where the heck we are going and how valuable we are to organizations, to businesses, to communities. Don't allow negative people to infiltrate you, and don't let these negative things get to you. There's a positive and a negative in many different things. So make sure that you're seeking people who compliment you, work with them, and make it better. So that's today's episode. I'm your girl, Miriam Simon, leadership expert, author of Tattoos and Pearls. If you like this episode, share it with a friend, share it with somebody you know, share it with somebody who's going through something similar to what I talked about, and give me a follow. Follow me at I am Miriam Simon on Instagram and YouTube, and I'll see you on the flip side. Take care.